You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere. All right.
Frank Luntz. Frank, it is great to see you. Want to get your thoughts. A couple of days now out from the debate. We're going to see President Biden tonight. George Stephanopoulos is going to be interviewing him. So important.
I thought that we're going to have two big nights.
Yep.
Conventions don't matter. That the two debates, I don't think there's going to be a second debate. And that tonight's interview could actually be even more important. If he doesn't come across strong, focused, and most importantly, on the future.
Right.
This is the single biggest complaint that all voters had, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat. All they did is fight about the past. What are you going to do for me now, next month, next year?
You mean what can be, unburdened by what has been?
Oh, that's a good line. Yeah, I'm not going to. That's a good line. It's philosophical.
But here's my question to you. You're seeing some of the donor class already step away.
By the way, it's
from
a
the
lot
from the president.
And I know that you're a journalist.
Yep.
Not just a host. The donor class is abandoning him. The members of Congress are afraid. The governors are afraid. I talk to them, and they're trying to figure out what the hell we can do. The donor class is not afraid, and they are shocked at what happened, and it's continuing.
Who would replace him? How do you see that?
As utter chaos. Has to go to the delegates. It cannot go to a nationwide primary. There's simply no time.
But you don't think that he and Jill Biden are going to ultimately have to anoint somebody?
I don't believe he's going to go. I trust those who say that his son and his wife are adamant, as is he, that he's the best. I don't believe this, but he firmly believes he's the best.
Do you believe the vice president steps into that role and that the Democrats ultimately support her in that position? Or do you think we're talking about a completely different team?
Once again, who's going to step up? I can name you half a dozen people who would be better than her right now, but I'm talking to them and nobody wants to challenge her because nobody... Okay, I'm going to be direct.
Yep.
God help me. You may never have me on the show again.
You don't even have to say it. We understand.
Nobody wants to knock out an African-American woman and be held responsible for that.
Right.
And that is the truth. And that's something that maybe I shouldn't, maybe I'm going to be criticized when I walk off of here. But she's got such a strong position because of that. And here's the issue. Her favorability is still, she's the most unpopular vice president since Dan Quayle.
Okay.
And he was the most unpopular vice president since Aaron Burr.
Then we're learning more today about that meeting with Governor Pritzker and other governors at the White House last night. The New York Times and others report that Biden said he doesn't get enough sleep. He's working too much at night and that he needs to curtail events after 8 p.m. Biden step aside. There are multiple scenarios on how a succession plan would work. He could resign from the presidency now, leaving it to Vice President Kamala Harris, who would then assume Biden's delegates for the nomination going forward. He could choose to drop out of the campaign and direct his delegates to back a certain candidate, although they would not be obligated to follow his suggestions. Just a suggestion.
And I want to be careful in how I phrase this, but 4 senior sources in the Democratic Party, some on Capitol Hill, some senior officials in the Biden campaign, no longer believe that Joe Biden will be the Democratic nominee. They don't believe any additional pressure will need to be applied. They don't believe it depends on how well he does in his interview with ABC News today. These officials have been largely shut out from deliberations, believing that Joe Biden had put himself in effectively a metaphorical bunker with his family, no longer relying on key political aides, key political colleagues who he's relied on for decades. And their belief is that eventually, maybe within a week, maybe sooner, that Joe Biden will say he's not going to be the Democratic nominee. The widespread expectation from these sources that Kamala Harris will be the nominee of the Democratic Party with Joe Biden's support. 2 questions I don't know the answer to yet. The timing. This is not something Joe Biden has told people. This is something these sources believe is inevitable now, and that includes people who are his close political advisors. And I can't tell you if he plans to step down from the presidency or if he will step down from the presidency or simply say he will not be the party nominee.
We've heard from Jill Biden and Hunter Biden. They both wanted him to stay at the top. So where is this call ultimately coming from? Who's making that decision?
Well, they are, and they've not reached this conclusion yet. But people around him who he would be wholly reliant on to go forward as a presidential candidate no longer believe that he will go forward. They believe that the overwhelming opposition to his nomination, continuing from the financial community, from his own advisors, from leading Democrats on Capitol Hill, from governors, and from Joe Biden's longtime political colleagues. That wall of opposition is unimmutable. It's not going to change. And that the prospect of continuing to try to win this election under those circumstances, these sources believe, is impossible.
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere. All right.